I came home from the hospital and found my husband with a dog chain on his neck but no water or food, while my daughter. I returned home after 3 long weeks in the hospital, my body aching, my heart still tethered to the drip that had kept me alive. The front door creaked when I entered, and in that instant, I knew something was very wrong. My cane clicked against the tile as I stepped into the living room and froze. There he was, Harold chained at the neck like a stray, secured to the sofa leg with a heavy loop. No water jug sat near him, no bowl of food, only dust and the faint stench of neglect. His face was hollow, lips cracked, eyes dull. A single ray of late afternoon light sliced across his bony shoulder. I swallowed and felt a tremor in my body. At that moment, Melanie, my daughter, descended from the stairs. Her phone glowed in her hand. She did not rush to help her father. She stood there, arms folded, her face cold. "Nice of you to come home, Mom," she said, her voice flat. "Thanks to your hospital break, the screaming has lessened in this house." Her words cut sharper than any scalpel. I forced myself to ask, "Why is he chained, Melanie? Why is there no water, no food?" A mocking smile curved on her lips. "Your husband and your finances were both liabilities, Mother. I'm simply doing what had to be done in order to protect myself." She held out her phone and played a short clip. The image flickered of Harold stumbling during one of his episodes, shouting at me in the early morning hours. "He threatened me, remember?" she said. "You told me it, you and your precious speeches about love and loyalty." My heart pounded. I tried to reason. Harold promised me something in his clear moments, something I kept safe. I thought of his hand, shaking in mine when he whispered, "If I lose it again, and if I ever try to hurt you, promise me, Edie, you'll chain me, better a chain than a coffin for you." His eyes, full of fear and love both. Melanie rolled her eyes. "That's old man's guilt. You and him made a contract, you made a film, and now we're picking up the pieces." She nodded toward her phone. "Donations are coming in. We'll sell the house next week. Dad can't live here anymore, and the bills keep stacking. It's better to cut our losses now," she added flatly. My vision blurred. I clung to the back of a sofa while the room spun, and then a voice inside me roared, "I will not be erased." The camera's red light blinked, but I refused to become its captive. Not today. Not ever. If you feel justice deserves celebration, smash that hype button. Let us keep stories like this alive, echoing far, far away. Your support helps us bring understanding and love to those who deserve it. Thank you so much. Keep listening. I straightened, cane in hand, and stepped forward. I knelt beside Harold and placed my hand on his shoulder. He looked up, surprise and relief in his eyes. I whispered, "I'm here, Harold, I'm home." Melanie's phone still recorded. She gave me a long look. "Mom, we did what we had to," she said, voice low. "This house isn't your retirement shelter, it's an asset." I did not reply. My mind raced through years, the late nights treating his illness, the fights I never mentioned, the fear I hid behind a smile. Tonight, though, the fear bowed down. "Harold," I said, leaning closer, "let me get you some water." He nodded, drooping. I reached for a glass, found one, poured water slowly, and held it to his lips. He drank a little, wincing, and I stroked his hair. Then Melanie's voice cut through. "Don't touch any of his things. You've drained enough from this house, Mother." I stood tall, looked at her, really looked. This daughter who believed herself protector and profiteer. I felt pity, but I also felt a thin line of steel form inside. "Everything I ever did, I did for him and for you," I whispered, so only Harold could hear. "Now I do it for me." Melanie's fingers tightened around her phone. The live stream indicator blinked red. She mouthed something, but I did not flinch. I helped Harold to his feet, supported him to the kitchen, gave him a bowl of soup I had heated in the hospital microwave earlier today. He ate slowly, his eyes never leaving mine. Melanie filmed us. I remember something he always said when he was well, that the only prison worth keeping is the one you build to protect the people you love. Perhaps tonight that thought came back alive. Melanie finally lowered her phone, her face hardening. She looked at the chain around his collar and mine at her. You know, if we sell next week, perhaps we start fresh. 2 homes, you in the retirement village, us in the city. I smiled softly. I will not go anywhere I do not choose. She turned away. And for the first time that night, the chain felt lighter. Harold leaned on me. I leaned on his unsteady frame, and though the chain still grazed the floor between us, the weight in my heart lifted. I sat beside him on that couch, sturdy and ancient, and felt something warm begin to bloom, something called hope. She never showed anyone the video, never told her friends that Harold had asked for the chain, that he'd been lucid, kind, grateful, that he'd begged me not to let his illness become someone else's tragedy. Instead, she told them we were dangerous, that she had to protect herself, that we were too far gone to love. When Harold started slipping again, she didn't help. When I asked her to take a weekend off to stay with him while I got a checkup, she said, "Why should I clean up your mess?" I said, "He's your father." She said, "He's your mistake." I went alone. 3 weeks in the hospital. When I came back, my husband was chained in the living room like a dog, and my daughter stood over him with a phone, recording. For likes. For sympathy. For a lie she had been crafting for years. And in that moment, I realized she wasn't just ashamed of us. She had weaponized our love. And the world was going to believe her. Unless I reminded them what truth looked like. I arrived home and found the front door ajar, one hinge loose, one lock undone. My hospital bag still draped the seat of the car. In the living room, footsteps echoed like hollow promises. Then I saw him, Harold, my husband, chained at the neck with a heavy dog chain secured to the sofa leg. There was no water bottle within reach, no food bowl, just the hollow weight of silence and the smell of a body forgotten. His eyes flickered when he heard me close the door. He did not speak, he did not move. The chain clinked softly. From the stairs came my daughter, Melanie, her phone held like a trophy. She waited until I stood still, then said, "Mom, I'm calling the police. I'm reporting you for domestic abuse toward Dad and toward me." Her tone was clipped, rehearsed, her eyes cold. I remained still, letting her words land. You've created a home where a soldier returns to a leash, a home where a daughter becomes hostage. I cannot, no, I will not let this continue. She flashed her phone toward me, the screen bright with a clip she had already recorded. In it, Harold's limbs shook, his voice lost to a throaty gurgle. A montage of him stumbling, a cut to me raising my voice, my own voice stolen, edited onto him. "You don't even remember your daughter's name, do you?" the voice said, though I had never uttered it. Then, a cut to black. Melanie's next move came fast. She took her phone and posted live. "Help save my father, Mom, won't let him go." Donations button blinking. A spinning wheel of sympathy. Comments already flooding in. "Poor man." "Woman abusing husband." Number "Rescue the soldier." The charity title blinked before my eyes. Save Dad Foundation. The slogan underneath read, "End the silence of domestic war." I stood by Harold's side while a pair of uniformed officers entered the house, 2 women. They gently asked me to sit in the small dining room, water offered, notebook open. I said nothing. My lips were sealed, my heart hammered. I thought of the video Harold made years ago, the one where he asked me to chain him when he lost control. I remembered his voice. "If I lose it again, and if I ever try to hurt you, promise me, Edie, you'll chain me. Better a chain than a coffin for you." I also knew he never meant it as shame. He meant it as protection. But here it was, turned into weapon. Meanwhile, outside the window, my neighbor Gladys hovered on the sidewalk, her camera discreet. I glimpsed her phone screen, showing Melanie counting bills in the back bedroom, money labeled donations. She adjusted the filter, made Melanie's eyes glistening, edited in soft piano music under the segment. I watched from the window, a silent witness. I saved the image in my mind. They asked me to tell what happened. I just said, "I have evidence, if you want to see it." They looked at each other. The younger officer cleared her throat. "Mrs. Walker, you are under investigation for elder abuse. Your husband will be placed temporarily in protective care. We are seizing assets, pending further inquiry." Melanie exhaled a quiet, yes, her phone camera still rolling. As they handcuffed me and led me out, Harold's chain scraped against the floor. I turned to him. He looked away. I wanted to whisper, "I told you I'd protect you," but I did not. I let the chain speak for both of us. They gave me a cup of tea in a foam cup and told me to take my time. As if a woman being accused of torturing her husband and daughter had the luxury of time. I sat under flickering fluorescent lights in the coldest interrogation room I had ever seen, but nothing chilled me like the realization that my own daughter wanted me erased. I wasn't crying. I wasn't shaking. I had done that already in the hospital bed, in the moment I saw Harold's sunken eyes and the chain pressing into his neck. But here, I waited. "I have proof," I said once. The young officer didn't even look up from his tablet. Gladys was the only reason I was still standing. When they released me after 48 hours of evaluation, she was already waiting outside with her old minivan, the engine running and heat blasting. I climbed in, and before I shut the door, she said one thing. "She's hiding something, and we're going to find it." It took 3 days. 3 long, furious days. Gladys called my old lawyer, Mr. Stern, a man whose handshake still felt like decency. He had handled Paul's will, our joint title on the house, and the just-in-case folder Harold and I had prepared years ago when his PTSD first showed its teeth. We met in his office, a cramped room above a bakery that still smelled like sourdough. Mr. Stern opened his dusty filing cabinet, pulled out a bright blue folder labeled Walker, Medical Directives, and flipped through until he found what we were looking for. A flash drive, and a printed transcript. The video played on Mr. Stern's old desktop. Harold sat in his favorite flannel shirt, hands folded in his lap, eyes clear, voice trembling but steady. "If I lose it again," he said, looking straight into the camera, "and if I ever try to hurt you, promise me, Edie, you'll chain me. Better a chain than a coffin for you." He paused, then added, "This is my decision, no one else's. I'm saying this with full capacity and a sound mind." The date and time were stamped in the corner. We had filmed it right after a particularly bad episode when he'd woken up screaming, convinced we were back in Kandahar. He had thrown a lamp, then wept for an hour. We never showed it to Melanie. She was too busy pretending to be ashamed of us at the time. Gladys copied the video to her own drive, backed it up twice, then handed it to Mr. Stern. "This," she said, "needs to be submitted as formal evidence, immediately." But that was only half the fight. While Mr. Stern worked on presenting the evidence to the district attorney, Gladys started looking into Melanie's social media accounts, donation platforms, and more critically, her medical paperwork. She found the fake. Melanie had submitted a fabricated medical report claiming Harold was of sound and unimpaired mental function at the time the chain was applied. It included a signature from a doctor who had retired in 2017 and a hospital code that didn't exist. "This isn't just cruelty," Gladys muttered as she scanned the printout. "This is calculated fraud." Melanie wasn't trying to protect Harold. She was trying to make him look mentally stable so that any safety measures we took looked like abuse. Because if Harold wasn't sick, then chaining him was evil. And if chaining him was evil, then I was the villain. A villain who deserved to be institutionalized, removed, forgotten. The perfect way to clear the house of both burdens. "She's trying to get you both out," Gladys said that night, sitting at my kitchen table. "You're the last 2 names on that deed. If she gets you declared mentally incompetent, she can sell this place and walk away a victim." I nodded slowly, fingers wrapped tight around my tea mug. "And Harold?" "She wants him committed permanently. He disappears, quietly." I didn't speak. I couldn't. I walked to the bedroom where Harold was resting. He was improving, slowly, less confusion, fewer hallucinations. He still called me Corporal sometimes, but there was recognition behind the eyes now. He sat in the rocking chair, wrapped in the blanket I'd knitted last winter, eyes closed, head tilted to the side, peaceful, fragile, mine. I knelt beside him. "I'm sorry I left you," I whispered, but I'm back now, and I will burn the whole damn lie down to protect you." The next day, we went to court. Not for a full trial, not yet, but for an emergency injunction. Mr. Stern presented the video, the transcript, the forged report with the dead doctor's name. The judge, an older woman with steel-gray hair and eyes to match, took one look at the evidence and said, "This case is not what it appears to be." Melanie was not present. She claimed to be recovering from emotional trauma and sent a statement through her attorney blaming age-related confusion for any inconsistencies. The judge ordered a full investigation into the forged records and froze all transactions related to the house. She also barred Melanie from accessing any donation accounts related to her Rescue My Dad campaign. Gladys and I walked out of that courthouse arm in arm. "We're not done," she said. "No," I replied. "But now we've started." They handed me a clipboard and a styrofoam cup of coffee in a white-walled room. The walls felt cold, as if waiting. I sat across from the table, the chain clink of Harold's collar still ringing in my ears from home. In that moment, I realized I was not only being accused of cruelty, I was being erased. The coffee was lukewarm, the paper thin. I took a slow sip. Outside the room, I could hear muted voices, the parts of my life that Melanie and her circle wanted buried. But I had something they did not expect. Gladys arrived that afternoon with her car idling. She did not speak at first, only handed me a flash drive and a small envelope sealed with my initials. "You might want to sit down," she said quietly. And I did. Inside the envelope, I found something I had forgotten I had kept. The original transcript of that video Harold asked me to record long before any of this. The one in which he looked into the camera and said, "If I lose it again, and if I ever try to hurt you, promise me, Edie, you'll chain me, better a chain than a coffin for you." I had saved the camcorder, the weekend we filmed the kitchen table scene after he woke from a nightmare of gunfire. His hands were trembling, his uniform still faded in the closet. He spoke with clarity. He asked me to promise. I kept the video. I had quietly told no one because I believed he didn't need the world, he needed me. Gladys, however, and my old attorney, Mr. Stern, believed the world might need it now. That night, in Mr. Stern's cramped office, he inserted the flash drive into his ancient computer. The file name blinked, HW Ascent, 2017, 9/12, MP4. The timestamp read, the 12th of September, 2017, 8:17 p.m. Harold sat, his face pale, voice firm. "I am of sound mind now," he told the camera. "I make this statement to you, Edie, because I love you, and because I know what I might become again." There was no shouting, no cameras, no filters, just a man, terrified and truthful. Meanwhile, under the light of Gladys's old hatchback, we discovered the other side of the plan. Melanie's forged medical report. She had submitted to the county court a document stating Harold had no cognitive impairment at the time the chain was applied. The doctor's signature? Retired since 2014. The hospital number? Non-existent. The document had been copied, scanned, stamped, sent. "We have you cornered," Mr. Stern said, tapping the typed page. "They've built the case that you were a tyrant, that you fractured your family, that the chain was your control tool." But the table turned. Gladys and I sat under a single desk lamp in the living room, Harold asleep in his chair. I let the chain dangle loose and held Harold's hand. He squeezed gently, eyes closing. "You came back," he whispered. I nodded. "I did." "Good," he said. "We do this right." The next morning, I passed through the house to find Melanie's tablet lighting up in the kitchen. She was live streaming donations. Comments poured in. "Pray for his rescue. Woman abusing elderly veteran. Send money now to save the house." She didn't notice me. I didn't move. I stood still, moved like a shadow, not like their villain. That afternoon, the court clerk called Mr. Stern. Emergency hearing, motion filed for immediate freeze of asset transfers, suspension of Melanie's petition to commit Harold permanently. The judge's order arrived by email. Immediate temporary suspension of guardianship petition pending new hearing. Funds frozen. No property transfer permitted. I read the words, closed my eyes, and exhaled. When I opened them, I looked at Harold. He sat upright, head leaning on the chair's back. He nodded. Silence. In the courthouse corridor, we met the hospital psychiatrist who had worked with Harold after his last major incident. He was tall and serious. He swore to the record. I examined Mr. Walker on the 4th of March 2018. He was lucid. He consented. He did not pose any risk to others. He posed risk only to himself due to the trauma of combat. The chain was his decision. I will testify as such. Melanie arrived late. She looked polished, eyes hidden behind lipstick. She glanced at the panel of lawyers and at me, then at the folder Mr. Stern held. The cameras of the local station flashed. Her smile faded. When the judge called us in, I carried the flash drive in my purse. I held Harold's chair steady. I felt my pulse calm. Because I knew the truth. The hearing lasted 2 hours. Mr. Stern laid out the evidence. Video of Harold's signed consent, proof of forged medical records, patterns of donations redirected to Melanie's private account, chain of custody in the house. He described the legal standard. If a guardian petition or conservatorship is being used to exploit or isolate a vulnerable adult, the court can remove or suspend the petition under state elder justice statutes. As the judge deliberated, I held Harold's hand. He looked at me. No shame, just recognition. Then the judge spoke. The court finds substantial evidence that the petition to declare Mr. Walker incompetent was advanced under false pretenses. The court hereby suspends Ms. Melanie's petition and returns all decision-making authority to Mrs. Edith Walker, pending full trial. Furthermore, all assets associated with the property at 432 Oakwood Lane shall remain in escrow, and no sale may proceed. A flush of relief warmed me. Harold exhaled, the chair squeaking. Melanie's face collapsed. I stood. I walked out past the gallery. Reporters scribbled. Flashbulbs popped. Gladys followed. Outside the courthouse, I hugged her. "Thank you," I said softly. She nodded. "You saved him." "No," I replied. "We saved each other." Back home, I sat beside Harold, the chain removed. He leaned into my shoulder. I threaded a needle and picked up yarn. He rocked gently in the old wooden chair. The war in his head quieted. My fear faded. And I realized this. The truth is not always loud. Sometimes it is the record we keep, the promise we honor, the chain we meant to avoid becoming. The news vans arrived before breakfast. I saw the antennae rise above the hedges like metal thorns, cameras rolling before I even put on my shoes. One reporter yelled my name. Another waved a microphone like it was a weapon. Gladys stood beside me, her hand steady on my elbow. "It's time," she said. The footage had already aired, the real footage. Not Melanie's manufactured sob story, but the raw, uncut truth. The video Harold and I recorded years ago played across every screen, his sunken eyes clear, his voice shaking but firm. "If I lose it again, and if I ever try to hurt you, promise me, Edie, you'll chain me. Better a chain than a coffin for you." They saw him say it. They saw the date, the notarized signature, the timestamp matching hospital records. And then came the donations, Melanie's fake charity fund, the one called Save My Father from Abuse. A supposed nonprofit now under investigation for fraud, theft, and misuse of elder funds. The first arrest warrant didn't surprise me. What did surprise me was how fast the world flipped. Reporters who once called me a monster now called me a hero. Neighbors who looked away now brought flowers. Even the judge who signed the initial investigation order against me stood and offered a public apology. I didn't care for their regret. I only cared about Harold. He came home the same day the story broke nationwide. His steps were slow, but he held himself upright. When he saw me, he didn't speak. He just reached for my hand. Our fingers locked, dry skin against dry skin, but somehow still warm. He looked into my eyes, and though his mind still wandered at times, I saw something return. Recognition, trust, love. We sat together on the porch in silence, his chair gently rocking beside mine. No chain, no accusation, just air and time. Inside, the walls still smelled like lemon polish and lavender oil, the same scent I used when Melanie was a baby. I had kept it for comfort. She never noticed. That night, the interview request came. The biggest network in the country wanted to talk, not just about the case, but about the years, the marriage, the illness, the choice to stay when others would have run. I declined. I did not need their cameras. But I did agree to one thing, a public statement, just once. So I stood in front of the courthouse 3 days later, surrounded by microphones, my voice shaking but unbroken. My husband served this country and came home with scars you couldn't see. He begged me not to abandon him, so I didn't. Not when he forgot my name, not when he woke up screaming, not when the world called him dangerous. I took a breath, but I never expected the betrayal to come from my own blood. That was when the doors opened behind me, and Melanie was led out in handcuffs. She tried to hide her face, but the flashbulbs caught her tears. She stumbled once, turned toward me, and spat the words like venom. "This is all your fault. You should have let him rot. You ruined my life, just like you ruined his." I didn't flinch. I stepped forward. "You weren't living with a madman," I said softly. "You were living inside your own entitlement. You saw two tired people and thought they were too weak to fight back. You were wrong." The crowd went silent. Then someone clapped. Then another. And another. It swelled until the square echoed with applause. Melanie froze, eyes wide, mouth trembling. She had built her throne on sympathy, and now it crumbled under truth. They found more bank transfers to personal accounts, invoices faked under my name, forged doctor's notes. She wasn't just cruel, she was calculated. The nonprofit account? Frozen. The lawyer she hired? Indicted. Every fake donation collected under my suffering was tracked and clawed back. I received none of the money. I didn't want it. I only asked for one thing, that she never come near us again. The judge granted a full restraining order. Melanie left the state during her bail period. No one knows where she is now. Some say she changed her name. Others say she tried to start a new charity under a new cause. But wherever she is, she knows one thing. Her story no longer controls mine. Harold's condition improved slowly. There were days he still slipped when he looked at me like a stranger or asked about his squadron like the war had just ended. But each time, I reminded him, "You're home now, you're safe, and I'm still here." He would nod, sometimes smile. And once, as I placed his favorite blanket over his lap, he whispered, "Did I hurt you?" I paused. "No," I said. "You tried to protect me, and you did." That night, he didn't scream. Weeks later, a journalist asked me off camera, "Why did you stay? Why didn't you just put him in a home?" I looked at her. Because love doesn't leave when it gets inconvenient. It shows up, it holds on, and it remembers even when the mind forgets. We live quietly now. No cameras, no headlines. Just us in the same house, on the same porch. Every evening, Harold sits in his wooden chair, rocking gently. He no longer needs restraints, no locks, no pills that turn him into a shadow. Just me. And him. And the quiet proof that not all chains are iron. Some are vows, the kind you keep even when the world tells you not to. And as I knit beside him, his eyes watch me, soft, steady, no longer lost. Because the truth, once freed, cannot be chained again. The sun was high when the call came. I stood in the garden beside Harold's old rocking chair, the tool shed still warm from morning light, when my lawyer's voice cracked over the phone. "Judge has issued the order," he said. "Mrs. Walker, you have 200 feet full protection. Miss Melanie Walker is prohibited from coming within that radius of you or Mr. Walker for the next 5 years." I let the phone slip from my fingers. The air felt different, lighter, as if the chains had been quietly removed while I wasn't looking. Harold paused his rocking, looked up, eyes clear. I nodded at him. He did not need words. Inside the house, the files were stacked. The title deed returned to our names. the insurance funds, the charity account frozen and redirected, everything stood. The new foundation was set up that morning. Shield for the Forgotten Elder and Veteran. I had watched the press release live, a simple logotype, a red ribbon wrapped round a soldier's helmet, and an elderly hand. The tagline, "When service ends, respect begins." Across the country, university lectures began to cite the case. Weaponizing Care, the child who turned witness to abuser. They titled the session. A video clip of Melanie's fake campaign, the forged documents, the pleas for donation rolled across classrooms as a cautionary tale. I didn't watch them. I didn't think I needed to. But the knowledge that my story might stop another elder from being silenced felt profound. That evening, I sat on the porch with a glass of iced tea. Harold beside me, the breeze soft but steady. He rocked. I knitted. Two people in a quiet rhythm of recovery, not of victimhood. When the doorbell rang, I paused. No one was supposed to come near unscheduled. I stood, looked at the chain that lay coiled in the shed, unused now. Harold caught sight of it too, but said nothing. I opened the door. A young man in a cap, holding a folder. "Mrs. Walker? I'm from the Foundation Board. I just wanted to thank you personally for your donation of wisdom. Would you like to be our keynote speaker next month?" I smiled. "I'll think about it." He nodded, left. The door closed softly. Harold chuckled, a full laugh. I had not heard it in years. He said quietly, "You built it." I reached out and squeezed his hand. "We built it," I corrected him. Our life resumed not as it was, but as it should have been. Garden roses in morning light, the coffee on the table, silence that didn't demand anything from us. Sometimes I heard from Melanie her lawyer's letter, the public record. Client moved state. Client seeks rehabilitation. I closed the letter and laid it in the shred bin. Tonight, I would sleep without worry. Tomorrow, I would wake without dread. And in the final whisper of dusk, I looked at Harold, then at the statue in the lawn. A small bronze figure of a veteran holding a young girl's hand. The plaque read, "For those who served and those who carried them home." He leaned forward. "Shall I ask you now?" I nodded. "You do not need to," I said. "Not anymore. The chain is gone. The fear is gone. And our life is finally ours." The morning sun came in slow through the porch slats, sending golden bars across the floor where Harold's rocking chair had found its place again. He sat there, rocking gently, his hands folded in his lap, his uniform jacket long hung away, the chain lying in the shed, unused, forgotten. I watched him. A soft breeze brushed the wind chimes I had bought them last spring, and the sound felt like forgiveness. Harold's recovery was neither swift nor perfect. Some days his mind still wandered to the desert, to the mortar fire, to the friend he could not save. He sometimes asked the same question twice, or stood in the hallway in the dark, calling my name in an old cadence. But he did not require bars or locks beside his bed. He did not shuffle in shadows or wake gasping. I had learned the difference between surviving and living, and on that porch, with his slow rocking and my quiet knitting, we were living. "You know," he said one afternoon, his voice soft in the heat, "better a chain than a coffin, but now, neither is needed." I looked up from the yarn, held the needles still, and smiled. He met my eyes, his gaze clear. "You're home now, Harold, and so am I." The home we shared was changed, yes. The walls still held echoes of pain. The living room still had the faint smell of antiseptic from the hospital stretchers I once wheeled in. But the air also held possibility. The scent of lavender from the small garden, the hum of passerbys noticing the little bronze statue we placed in the lawn. A veteran holding a child's hand, inscription reading, "For those who served and those who carried them home." Our foundation, the Shield for the Forgotten Elder and Veteran, had become real. The paperwork finished, the board assembled, the first scholarship granted to a caregiver who had given 50 years of service to her spouse. I never attended the gala. I did not need lights or microphones. Harold still refused the spotlight. He said he never expected applause. But I knew he deserved peace. Every weekday morning, we sat on the porch. I knitted something, a blanket, a scarf, mittens for the veterans we met. He rocked and looked at me sometimes, and his eyes said what his voice could not yet. Thank you. And I said back by passing him a cup of tea, by brushing a lock of his silver hair, by simply being there. There were days I heard from Melanie emails forwarded, new lawyer names, announcements of rehabilitation efforts. I saved none. I did not open them. The world outside our porch had shifted. Her face no longer appeared on television segments with pity porn about a cruel mother. Instead, her story became a cautionary tale in universities, in social work classes, in articles about elder abuse and fraud. The video she made to propel her campaign was dissected, analyzed, studied. She lost her home, her charity was shut down, her name etched into public records as a warning. We heard of it occasionally. Harold asked once, "Does she know we're okay?" I said, "She knows you're home. She knows what home means." He nodded, his chair creaking lightly. In the garden, the roses bloomed. I watered them each morning. I named one after Gladys, one after the stranger who had donated anonymously to our foundation, one after Harold's friend who did not come home. I talked to them quietly. "Grow steady, Harvey. Reach for the sun, Josephine." It may have been silly, but it made the mornings soft. One noon, a young man from the foundation board stood at our gate. "Mrs. Walker," he said, "we would like you to speak at Veterans and Caregivers Summit next month." I considered. I thought of the lights, the podium, the cameras. I looked at Harold's chair, his still hands, the yarn I held. I said, "No, thank you." He raised an eyebrow. "Not even a short statement?" I shook my head. "My story is not a spectacle. It is a home. I will speak in the subtler language of quiet service." He smiled and left. Harold gave me a small grin. "I like that better." I nodded. "Me too." Winter came back eventually. The cold returned. But we had sweaters, we had blankets, and the chain, once our symbol of fear, had become a relic. I placed it behind glass in the little museum room we turned part of the house into. A sign beneath it read, "From fear to fidelity." One visitor leaned in, asked, "Did you ever regret filming it?" I shook my head. Not for a second. Late at night, when the house was quiet, I would stand at the window and watch Harold in the chair. The night sky stretched wide. I would whisper into the darkness, "Thank you." For years he was ill. For the days I stood by and they called me weak. For the chain that became a promise. For the love that stayed. And he would nod. At that moment, I knew we were free from the chain, free from fear, free to simply be two people who loved each other, flawed and healing. Better a chain than a coffin, but now we walk the path of neither. We walk the path of us. 1 year had slipped past since the storm broke, and yet the porch we sat on now felt more like sanctuary than ever. The roses I planted bloomed with an ease that belied the winter they had survived. Each morning, I stepped out with a cup of tea, Harold beside me in his wooden chair, rocking gently, his eyes brighter than I'd seen in years. The heavy iron chain that once bound him to fear was gone, replaced by memory, by forgiveness, by something calm and deep. We had learned new rhythms. Mid-morning became our quiet hour. I knitted soft wool, pale gray, patterns that spoke of time unfolding, and Harold closed his eyes and listened to the wind chime I hung last spring. He still slipped sometimes, calling me corporal or asking about the mission, but then he would shake his head gently and say, "I'm home, Edie. You brought me back." And I believed him. The foundation we started, Shield, for the Forgotten Elder and Veteran, became more than paperwork. On Wednesdays, I met volunteers in the little back room of the house-turned-home office. Harold came too, on better days, leaning on my arm, greeting the young caregivers with a nod, a quiet smile. One afternoon, a young veteran approached him and said, "Thank you for your service." Harold hesitated, looked at me, then at the man, and murmured, "We did the best we could." I squeezed his hand. Sometimes, Melanie phoned. These calls were brief, sharp, like clipped wings. She would ask for access or an update on Dad's meds, or demand a meeting. "When can I see him?" She'd say, voice rehearsed. I would answer, "We are safe now, Melanie. We are at home." She'd hang up. I wouldn't reply further. One evening, she appeared unannounced on the driveway. She stood by the gate, rain dripping off the brim of her hat. Harold sat on the porch, faint smile on his face, knitting needles idle beside him. I walked down the steps. Melanie's voice broke as I greeted her. "I heard about the foundation. I want to talk." She insisted on seeing Dad. Harold stood. I watched his step falter, but he steadied. I smiled and offered, "Would you like tea?" She shook her head and said, "No, I want him to sign some papers." "No," I said softly. "Dad is home, and his voice belongs to him." She turned, rain tracing lines down her face, and whispered, "I just want what's mine." I didn't answer. Later, I found Harold in his chair, with his blanket over his knees, his hands still. I sat beside him and said, "You handled that beautifully." He looked toward my knitting bag. "I felt free," he said. And he was. We both were. A year later, the house still bore the marks of past battles, the faded spot on the carpet where the chain once dragged, the photo of the camcorder I used to film his promise, but they felt like artifacts, not anchors. I dusted the shelf containing the chain's rusted link. It now sat in a glass case, a monument to what we overcame, and turned back to Harold. We sat in silence for a time. Then he whispered, "Better a chain than a coffin. But now, I think we're done with both." I nodded. "You're home now, Harold, and so am I." And there we remained knitting, rocking, breathing, living. Thank you for listening to my story. If it moved you even just a little, please, don't let it stop here. Subscribe to Grandma True Stories for more truths from quiet corners and voices the world tried to forget. Because some chains are silent, some betrayals come in whispers, and some stories, they deserve to be heard, all the way to the end. Hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone who needs to remember what love really looks like. And until next time, remember, when a grandma speaks, the world finally listens.